and Perspective with Chris Johnson.
Episode 27 with my friend Annie Shred. We talk about our favorite numbers, metal bands that inspired us, and the paranormal. Check out her music on the Players Pick podcast playlist on Spotify. Let's see. Sweet. Hi, Annie.
Hey, Chris.
So good to have you over here. This is episode number 27 for me.
Ooh.
So.
That's a good number in my life, actually.
Is it?
That's the,
Tell me why.
Well, that's the street I grew up when I was a kid. 27 Kirby Drive.
Oh, that was your address.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I dig 2 and 7 because they add to be 9, and I'm a fan of 9, which is, I'm a fan of 333, and I don't
I'm
know.
also a fan of 9. We're kind of like syncing up right now. What's happening here?
do you have any stories around 9?
I've honestly just always liked 9. It's like no real purpose to that. But then I've also had I put in a lot of value in 22 because I see 22 kind of everywhere in my life right now, like in the past maybe year or so. It's been very apparent, but yeah, number significance is a thing for me.
Cool. Yeah, I had a total cosmic thing happen like with the 333 thing, like and that kind of fueled the concept of 9 and all this for me. I was 22-ish, almost 23, and working at Tower Records in Chico, California. And that's where I met my ex-wife Heather, and we were actually not even dating yet. She was across the other counter, and I was working like the Ticketmaster counter or whatever. And well, I had the number 333. Let me back up. The number 333 had come up a lot for me in like the previous 3 years. There was a bunch of weird things. Like I was waking up at 3:33 a.m. multiple nights in a row. It was the weird. I don't even know how it started, but then it's just kept going. Wow. And I wake up and look at the clock. What's going on? This is eerie.
Yeah.
And the place I worked at, the address was 3330 Highway 32, Suite E backwards 3. The girl that I was dating, she moved into apartment 33C. C is a third letter of the alphabet, so 333.
Oh, wow.
All these weird things that had been coming up, and I started even doing some paintings about. I just felt like, wow, I just need to draw or something and try to express whatever this number is. And here I am working as is almost 3 years into dealing with the 333, and this guy comes up and buys a CD, and I'm like, oh cool, oh your change is $3.33. I go, there's that stupid number again. What? And he's like, what? What are you talking about? I'm like, I briefly kind of tell him what I just told you. And he's like, whoa. I wonder if it's the day of the year that you were born on or something. And I was like, what? That was such a stoner statement. I was like, what? And he's like, I don't know, man, check it out. And walks out. And I look over at Heather and I'm like, hey, did you even hear what that guy said? And she's like, no. And I explained it to her and she's like, well, you are towards the end of the year. Do the math. So I do the math. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm a day off. That's weird, but I'm so close.
Wow, yeah.
And she's like, but aren't you 76 like me? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, that's a leap year. You're actually 333rd day of the year. I was like, no way, right? So I was like, so that blew my mind completely open, and I'm still don't even fully comprehend how the universe had this random dude tell me.
That guy was just like, whoa, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
You follow his advice and that works.
I'm like, what
crazy.
If I was asking for a sign, I guess that could could be qualified,
Absolutely. I think numbers are very comforting, and just because I've had a very similar experience to you. For example, my boyfriend who I've been with for 10 years met when I was living in an apartment that was 222, apartment 222 at Berklee College of Music on Commonwealth. And for example, one of the coolest shows I've ever played, biggest show I've ever played, I was meeting the manager of the DJ at a street that was 222. And it's just things like that keep coming up, and the number's just been really significant for me. So.
Wow. Oh, and then to boot, I found out, this is a recent find out, because I was just randomly reading about threes or something like that, and I'm gonna look up the 333 day of the year thing again, just see what if other people had to say about it. And on one of the articles or something, it was like, oh, and by the way, every year on November 28th, which is my birthday, there's exactly 33 days left in the year.
What? That's insane.
So I'm like, what? Okay, this is a kind of an interesting thing.
It's like your final countdown of the year.
Yeah. So like, it's 33 days left. I don't ascribe a whole lot of meaning to it. At the same time, I definitely hold it sacred. Like it's kind of like how I learned to be with astrology and all kinds of other like predictive things. I was like, oh, I'll just mark that as really interesting. I don't know if it actually is going to lead me anywhere or do anything, but noted. Thank you, universe.
Yeah,
okay.
I think that's a very positive way to look at it, because you don't want it to have too much meaning. I think then it can get a little kooky maybe, or who knows. But yeah, same. Just kind of noting it and maybe even being comforted by it a little bit. Because I don't know, I just sort of see it and I'm just like, okay, there you are again. Like, I'll take it.
Comforting, I like that. Because I definitely feel comforted with it. Because like I'll just glance up and it's 3:33 and I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, and what's interesting is it sounds like neither one of us were looking for that whatsoever. It kind of was something that came up that we just kind of acknowledged, and now it's a thing. So that feels really genuine to me.
Same, yeah. So, you're from Lima.
Yes.
How long have you been in the States? And can you tell me a little bit about what it was like to come here?
Absolutely. So, very short-lived time in Lima. I was adopted from Lima, Peru, and I was really only there for like the first several weeks of my life, like as a baby. So I was adopted, and basically grew up in like Mansfield, Connecticut. So I was like lived basically like a completely Americanized life. Lived on the East Coast, like my Caucasian parents, and so I didn't really get to fully experience like my Peruvian nature, but it's something I want to do, and it's definitely like on my bucket list and of things that I kind of want to like embrace more. But,
have you not been back?
I have not.
Oh, I'm so excited for you to go back there. That's going to be so exciting. No, not yet, but like Lima and Peru is all on my list because of Machu Picchu and a few other shredder. I think isn't Charlie Parra from there?
Oh, I don't know.
I think he's.
I need to know more Peruvians.
I think he's Charlie Parra Del Rigo, big YouTube awesome guy from. I think he's Peru.
Seems super familiar.
Yeah, but I'm such an ancient history buff. Like I like will get super lost on YouTube watching all these ancient civilization things, and so Machu Picchu is always there, and Peru always comes up, and Nazca lines, and there's so many different like kind of crossing of cultures that are such mysteries. Like we think we have stories about these things, but they're like more recent stories. They're not actual stories about like how any of that stuff was built or what it was used for truly.
Right.
It's usually like a later, like our most recent ancient peoples that are in that area have passed down knowledge, but most of those people inherited those places. Like they're older than like what the oldest stories that we kind of know about them. And because what happens is like you notice the oldest stones are like cut really well and they're put together perfectly. And then as you get older and as you get more recent, the for whatever reason the craftsmanship goes down because like the knowledge is lost.
Ooh, so it wasn't like properly passed down, I guess. They just inherited things and kind of...
Yeah, so I think it's like new generations finding the old sites, trying to replicate what they saw, but falling short. And that's like all over the world. It's not just in Peru. It's like almost every ancient site that was kind of readopted usually because like a next generation either grows over and another generation finds it and like curates it. Like that happened all through Mexico and South America and Central America too.
That's interesting.
That's a whole topic that I could do a whole other podcast on. But I really appreciate you, especially since like I've always just like admired you from afar. We've definitely worked with each other throughout the years and seen each other at NAMM and stuff. But it's just nice to get this time to hang out with you too, because
Same here, man.
Because we haven't been able to spend like
know.
some quality time. So
That's what I feel like too. So I was excited when you asked me to do this.
awesome. And you just told me you're playing the Dunlop Flow 1.0s, right?
That's right. That's literally all I'm playing right now.
Now, when you start, like you're like 28 now,
28.
and so when did you start playing?
Started playing when I was like 14. I would say I started actually like practicing in like around 14. I think I had a guitar maybe at like 13, but 14.
Do you remember what your first guitar picks were, or who gave them to you, or any stories around that?
Just like a medium Fender, I think, like something not too complex, like for strumming chords type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that was pretty much it because I started just with chords. So.
And do you remember ever? I mean, what's your evolution been like? Do you kind of remember as like what you graduated to the years to get to playing the flows now?
I do, yeah. So, well, my uncle taught me my first few chords, and he taught me like some Pearl Jam songs, just like kind of open chord stuff, like Old Country Road, and just like stuff I could play with my family. And my dad actually bought my first guitar with me, and we were gonna share it, and we were gonna learn together. And then I ended up just kind of like stealing it from him and playing it too much. So he ended up not getting to practice that much, but it worked out. He actually plays guitar now, and we actually like jam out a little bit. Or he plays ukulele, rather.
Cool.
Yeah, so I mainly started out with just like, like singer-songwriter stuff. Green Day was like my favorite band when I was like 14, 15. And I learned, honestly, like every song off of like American Idiot. I learned like also the older stuff like Basket Case and just all like the rhythmic stuff. So I got super into like punk and like kind of like pop punk and Liquid 82 stuff. And then from there, I think I kind of just started writing my own stuff. But then I also was introduced to Ashes of the Wake, Lamb of God, and that was like the metal album that changed my life.
It's a great record. I was just listening to that record the other day.
That's tight. Yeah.
Did you learn some of that stuff?
Oh yeah. I mean, I just remember hearing Laid to Rest, and I will say that like I don't think I was properly introduced to metal in terms of like the history of metal at that time, so I hadn't really heard like the classic bands. So that was the first time I had heard anything that heavy or that like technical. So hearing like Laid to Rest, like like that was like crazy for me, and I just like immediately learned that song. I spent like the whole night learning it, like looked it up on Ultimate Guitar and just like was up till like 2 a.m. on my school night, and I was like, this is crazy, like this is something to dig into.
Yeah. What picks were you using by that time?
I think at that time, I remember actually the Gator grip ones, the green ones. They're really thick actually.
Okay.
At the time, because I had a boyfriend who was like pretty like elite about like everything he did in terms of like playing and stuff, and he was like, these are the thickest picks and they're the hardest ones to play, but you'll get like the best tone. And I was like, yeah. So I wanted to be like just like digging hard and not just so I wanted to find the best thing for it.
Awesome. And from there, where did you go? Did you stay with the Gator grips until recent, or was there something in between?
Gator grips I sticked with for a while, and then I went to the Jazz 3s, because then I was pretty much just soloing and like just trying to play like guitar solo, neoclassical, like necrophagist stuff.
The shred stuff.
Yeah. That was like the shred phase. So Jazz 3s, and then
do you remember what color? Or
red.
Red.
The red ones. And then from there I went to the white, like I have no idea what size, but they're like, I think they're the John Petrucci signature ones. Like they were the size of that, but they were the white ones.
Oh, so they're a white, like a Tortex Jazz 3?
I don't know if they were Jazz 3 though. Maybe you have it actually.
Those
it looks
ones
closest to that, but like it was a sharp.
Oh, it was like really sharp.
Yeah.
So it's a Tortex sharp.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like sharper than sharp. Basically,
Yeah.
It's like the sharpest one you could see, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you were using that.
So yeah, then I was using that because I was doing a combination of solo-y stuff and then kind of more like riff stuff.
That's what Jeff Loomis uses.
Yes,
That
I
style.
think so. Yeah.
And the Polyphia Boys and the Chon Kids. They're all into the sharps.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
You know all of the
Yeah.
the pics to the person.
Well, yeah, and I've done podcasts with those guys too. They were on not too long ago, and it's like for me. It's almost like with players. Since I've made so many custom picks for people over the last couple of years, it's been like you start to identify. You're like, oh, Annie, yeah, she's Flow 1.0. I used to identify her as a Jazz 3 or whatever, But in my mind, it's like I associate like the two. It's like how I remember names and all these weird things.
I don't want to be defined as a Jazz 3. I'd rather be defined as like pig fluidity. Like.
Yeah, you can you decide what your pick gender is. It's fine. Like that, we can I'll wait until you give me the right the right way to call it. So then it was the shredder sharps for a bit, and you said there were white ones.
Yes.
So pretty thick then.
They were pretty thick. I wish I had a picture, but
probably 1.5s. Like it might be like the thickest ones.
That sounds familiar.
Okay.
Yeah, because my one of my buddies turned me on to them, and I just like loved them immediately. And I was on that for like a while, and then y'all sent me the Flow pics, and that was just like, well, these are my new faves. So. What do
you feel like you get out of the Flow at this point?
Just like grip, and it just feels more like an extension of like I feel like what my fingers do, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So it's just like more natural, I guess. Like I feel like I had to maybe hold it a little bit tighter when I had the white ones. So these just feel more natural, I guess, for me.
Cool. Yeah, that's a very common thing. Is like I don't know, it just flows. Like it's just I think I've had a few people say, well, the thing is I don't think about them, and when you stop thinking about a piece of gear, that's like it's probably working really well. It's like the right thing usually because you're not.
Absolutely.
It doesn't feel like there's no sense of it working against you anyway, at least.
Yeah, it's
right?
like less to control. It's almost like becomes like just like a part of what you're doing.
Cool. And how long have you been here in LA?
Fall 2015. So yeah, kind of a few years now.
So coming up on 5.
That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
It feels a lot quicker than that.
Were you into the electronic music for a long time, or is that more of a recent thing?
It's actually been something I've kind of been concocting since like 2015.
Cool.
Yeah, like when I left Boston, I guess made peace with kind of the music I was making, and then like, which was obviously metal and just like very like guitar oriented stuff. And I actually put the guitar down for a while, which maybe seems like kind of sad, but it was actually like I think really good for me because I kind of like dug into songwriting and I dug into my voice, and for me that's been like super transformative because I feel more like an artist in the sense of what I write. I feel like it's more my voice, like overall, like not just the instrument. And I feel like for a while, a lot of the work I was doing was just guitar and metal based because that's what people were kind of offering me and like looking to me for. And I think I just wanted something a bit stronger that defined me more, like not just to be like a guitar player. So I was super into electronic music at school, like at Berkeley. I went to Berkeley for electronic production and design.
Oh.
And so I learned sound design and like songwriting at Ableton while I was there, and like a little bit of DJing. And got into like a lot of electronic artists, and I kind of spent the next few years just like messing with sounds like of like bands that I liked, and like kind of mixing it with metal and guitar and rock, and so for me that was like really important to have that time to kind of explore. So it's actually been a while, but I've just kind of started putting stuff out.
That's great. I was just checking some of the. Anytime you put up something, I'm always checking it out because I really do enjoy what you do, and I like that you're cross genres and like one day you're like shredding something cool, next day you're just like I'm just singing with some electronic music or singing something mellow. Like it's it's really nice to have like somebody that's into things that are keeping it fresh. Like you're like not stuck in one direction. So, but I was checking out I don't remember what year it was. Maybe it's recent, but a Burning Man set that you did.
Yeah, oh, that's sick.
What's that green? What's the name of that?
So the name of my artist project is Dreameater, and it's me on guitar and vocals, and then Danny Dodge, who's also my boyfriend. He's like the sound designer, producer, also DJs. So.
Dreameater. Cool. Yeah, that was a cool set, and there was a lot of cool breaks, and it had me dancing here. I was checking it out. I was like, oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm glad you dug it.
Yeah. So in the grand scheme of things, like you do so much. You're like so much in this direction and that direction because you're singing, you're writing, you're producing, you're creating beats and all that stuff. I mean, and do you do music like pretty much full time, or what's your?
Yeah, so like my bread and butter is actually teaching. So I teach just like freelance. Like I just like go to people's homes and I'm teaching like some young girls like Ableton and like songwriting, and then some other people I'm teaching like piano and guitar lessons. So I do that like to be able to like support myself and have like a lot of time to like work on my artist project. But I guess if you include that that is music, I guess.
No, it's full time.
So yeah, that's full time. That would be full-time music, not full-time from my own artist project, but full-time in terms of everything I do for money, I guess. It's music related. Right.
No, that's great. Like, it's good to kind of keep it close. That way it feeds into it itself, right? And you kind of stay into a certain hustle. I know for myself, like before I was ever in the industry, I just worked at CD stores over and over and over again. I'd sell guitars. I'd work at a CD store. And I took other jobs occasionally when I had to, but it's like, where's the CD store? Where's the guitar store? Let me hit that.
That's
even though it didn't pay well.
Yeah.
It was just like, oh, it's horrible. But like, at least you're hanging out with your kind, and like,
exactly.
There was the benefit of music and benefit of guitar. So
I think that's really important. Yeah, to keep you excited and just kind of like inspired by different things. Like that's really important. And yeah, I would say teaching I kind of fell into, but it's super inspirational to me, and I'm really glad that I stuck with it because I'm kind of at a nice place where like all the students I teach are actually like really inspired and like motivated, and so like it's something, it just feels like a give and take. Like I learn stuff from them and they learn stuff from me, and we're kind of exploring together. So
that's awesome. I know that a handful of people that teach that it's not really their favorite thing to do, so it's good to hear somebody that like does teach and is like getting something out of it too.
For sure.
And that's actually leads me up to like what I was going to ask, and is like, how do you have a formula for life? Do you have like a thing for you that like you kind of maybe live by, or kind of any rules or things that keep you inspired and motivated?
Positivity, I think, overall. Just I think just in terms of like keeping yourself going and motivated. I try to just keep like a really, really positive mindset, like in all aspects of my life, and I've noticed that that's something that I think really kind of like feeds the people around you, and like it's been a source for me of like people I've met that have like really helped motivate me, just in general. But like musically, I like to go to concerts, like to go to see live music. I like to go out and like talk to other musicians about music and just like really kind of like hear where other people's brains are at with things, and also maybe even like just like to be friends with other artists that like aren't doing music that are doing cool things. I think is interesting.
So yeah, having a community of other creators.
Yes.
Right, that you kind of a circle of creators that you get to be basic friends with, and kind of like check in and see what they're up to, and then like feed off of like, oh, their project was interesting, and
yeah, absolutely.
Go take some of that kind of vibe and go do something with it for yourself.
Yeah, I think that can be really interesting, and to see how like you both have different perspectives on things, and even showing people that are like non-musicians the music, I think is really cool, because I think we all tend to like go in a hub and like get like really critical or just like analyze things in a big way, and that can be super fun in its own regard. But it can also be like, you also just want to. It's like I actually just showed the EP that Danny and I've worked on for years to Danny's like parents, and they're like not musicians like whatsoever, and they kind of like spoke to us in a big way, because they're like, well, these two tracks are what make me want to dance. And I was like, oh yeah, like that's like a huge element, like, and so it kind of, we were like, okay, well, we definitely gotta keep these two, because that's just like bold, like easy, like of course we should pick those two tracks. So we're all like, oh, I really like this melody and like this section, and it's like such a musician's way of looking at it. But
that you bring up a really good point, actually, and that's because for us that are musicians and creators, and especially guitarists that are in kind of like a shred element at all, or have been in like the kind of the technical frontier of like looking at what can be done with the instrument, and like can I play a part in the innovation of it. These type of people like us that will think that way, oftentimes need that outside input to say, hey, all those things that that looks really cool, but like the song that was really simple that made me want to dance, like maybe do more of that. I don't know.
I know, and then you're just like, oh.
Like,
crap.
Oh yeah, right. There are people that don't make music that listen to music too.
I forgot about that completely.
I'm sorry, I didn't think about you guys existing when I was making this music, because I was trying to impress other musicians.
Exactly.
Like most of the time, it's kind of, and I think that which is great. It's fun because some of the other musicians are like such great fans and will follow, and they understand your mindset when doing the thing. It's there's a lot of people outside of the musician world that can understand or vibe off it too. But the thing I think we maybe forget the most is there's probably a lot more non-musician listeners than there are musician listeners.
It's a tongue twister.
So I guess if you're really going to like get a wide net of people to listen to the music or to enjoy it, then you have to kind of craft it for that a little bit.
It's absolutely true, and it's something that I think is so easy to lose sight of when you only have musician friends too. So I think that can be like a bit of a rule, and something I am trying to expand a little bit on is to have other like artists in my life. And like recently I have a friend who's like an actress, and that's so totally not a world I've been in, and so I think that's super interesting. So I'm hearing about like her escapades, and she's an artist too, but it's like a totally different type of art. So I guess that would be one of my rules, or just something to kind of like acknowledge.
My dad always says, he's like, kid, I'm glad you can play, and I'm kind of glad I don't play, because there's got to be me and there's got to be you. Like I'm just a straight up listener, and he reminds me all the time. He's like, and to me, to the non-listener, oftentimes what you think is like shoddy work, it still seems like magic to us. And I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. But amongst other magicians, you're like, oh, my magic is kind of like at a 7. I want it at an 11. But and everybody kind of has that. Not everybody, but like a lot of us have that kind of degradation about like, oh, I'm working on my thing. But you don't feel like your magic is as strong around other magicians or musicians that are in a similar vein. For me, it's always been like outside my genre is actually even more impressive to me. Like deep jazz guitar players, I'm just like, oh, I'm blown away by that. Get it, buddy, because I have no idea what you're doing right now. It looks like if I were to guess, it just looks like you're just going for it and haphazardly, like accidentally making it every time the chord changes. Oh yeah. But I know you're not. I know you're not. I know that you like understand this progression, but holy shit, like just like listening to somebody like John McLaughlin, or like some of the greats that do.
Absolutely. That's super interesting. Oh, that's so funny that we're all like that.
Yeah. The part where I feel like it's such an interesting thing to be able to transmit music anyway, because what is this? Like, what is this that we're even doing? I kind of almost have to ask that question out loud to be like, okay, so we're all very accustomed and conditioned to listen to and create or consume music, but what is it? What is it that we're doing? Like, what is as a musician, as a creator, what is my purpose in doing the thing? And I keep coming around. Well, it's a communication. It's an expression of one's self, maybe, and oftentimes through an instrument, you're trying to find an expression that's outside of words, right? Like there's like a general vibe or feeling. And then, if you're a vocalist like you as well, then you have this other element of being able to communicate. So then what is it that you're trying to communicate?
That's such a great question. I appreciate you asking it that way because I have more to say now.
Cool.
Actually, so for me, the thing that is always at the front of my mind is that I want to help people become more powerful, because that's what music has always given to me, like ever since I was a kid, like listening to like Laid to Rest, or like listening to a song that like feels like super energetic and like badass is like always made me feel like, whoa, I could do that, or like this is like, or it feels like you're part of something bigger even. And I think that feeling of power has like given me a lot of confidence over the years, and also just like made me feel like I can dream and like make those dreams happen. And a lot of what I've been able to do in my life has been because I've like sought after playing something beautiful or writing something beautiful and then putting it out there, and it's like being brave enough to put it out there. And so I think the powerful thing, helping people realize their own power, because that's what I think music ultimately did for me.
That's cool. I can appreciate that. I feel I would attribute when I found Pantera when I was 16. I remember the first time I'd heard Cowboys from Hell, a couple tracks, and I was like, okay, yeah, cool. I was young and I wasn't really playing guitar quite yet. But then when Vulgar Display hit, and a buddy of mine were driving to Chico, like from Corning, to go to like the CD store, tape store probably back then. I don't even know, it was probably CD, but and he's like, this is the new Pantera. And I just like, I remember hearing the lyrics, and I just like, I'm pretty sure this is my band. Like because I was like 16 and I was like mad at the world. Like I just like, I had issues with my dad and my stepdad, and like I just, everything was going in the way it was going, and just teenage angst in general. You just like have to, it's like part of your DNA. You have to find a way to rebel, even if you love your parents, even if they never did anything wrong to you.
That's
like you still find something. And Pantera was, it's like, fucking hostile. I was like, oh my god, I'm so mad. That is so perfect. Like, walk on home, boy. I'm like, yes, that is totally it. I'm gonna shave my head tomorrow. Like
motivational. Yeah.
So I can totally relate to the kind of like the sense of power that it can imbue to you. And like I felt like once I kind of like accepted that metal was okay, like because of my Christian upbringing, I was like, oh no, I'm gonna go to hell.
Going down that road.
Like next stop, like heroin injected into my eyeballs. Like I don't know, in seances. I don't know. I didn't. It was like that kind of feeling of like, oh, I'm crossing a line here or whatever,
Right.
But it felt such an adrenaline, and I started like kind of trying to like using that energetic quality to assert myself in the world in a more in a better way or a bigger way, and sometimes it went overboard, and I found, oh wow, that's too much. You can't use Pantera level energy on everything. That's too big of a hammer.
That's hilarious.
So like you wouldn't want to use Laid to Rest energy on everything.
Right.
That would.
Chris, how are you?
What's up? I'm doing great. It's like you just cut like, and that would, some people live like that.
True, I feel like I've met people like that. Actually, just thinking about this now.
I'm sure you probably got off stage and like you had like a fan or somebody is like, whoa. You're like, okay, you're at a 25 and can you come down to like an even 10 or a 9 or something?
Absolutely. But that's something that has always, I feel like, transcended things for me as a musician and a musical listener. Is that sort of like it gives you power, it makes you feel powerful. And it's always, I think for the most part, it's always positive. Like, obviously you can go over the top, you can go too far down one end with that, but for the most part, it's only brought, like, positive things to my life, and at least forced me to try things and, like, learn, rather than just stay, like, stable or whatever. So.
Awesome. Yeah. And you have music in the works right now, right?
I do, yeah, the Dreameater EP, which is being mixed and mastered right now. So that's pretty exciting, and I'm really excited to put it out because we also shot a music video for our single Afterlife in May, and we've been working on it for a while at this point, editing it, and my good buddy Ivan Chopik, we were just talking about him.
Yeah, Ivan.
Yeah, he produced it and he edited it. We worked with him on it, and it's just like this really epic culmination of things that I've been wanting to put out for a while. So I'm super excited about it, but I'll definitely put out like, dates and stuff and saying no.
Is this the EP that you had like a GoFundMe or something for, or like a?
Oh no,
Kickstarter?
that's
Is that older?
That's way older. So that's like for Formless, which was my old technical death metal band. Like back in like I guess the last year we were active. Maybe it was like the end of 2015, something like that. But yeah, we are no longer bands, just no longer active. But
got it. So you're doing this one all on your own?
Yep, all on our own, completely funded by us. Produced and written all by us and mixed by an awesome producer that we met, and yeah.
Do you have plans to do live?
Absolutely, that's like our next phase of things. So like once everything's out, we're gonna be just like reaching out for shows in and around Los Angeles and pretty much anywhere we can get.
And
so.
Will it be a duo? Like you'll be able to do it all?
Yeah, so
just
Danny and me, just the two of us.
Man, that's the dream.
Isn't it though?
Relationship goals right there.
It's a bit crazy. It's like a lot, but we've Danny and I have been in a relationship for 10 years, so we've worked at working together, being together, being able to kind of handle that, balance that, and it's really, really awesome and in a really great place right now. So that feels really good to feel like that, and then to be putting out music and kind of going to the next level of things. So and it's nice to, thank you so much. Yeah, it's nice to have it only be two people.
Are you kidding? Like I know you've been in multiple bands like through the years, right? And like just that whole dynamic of having to
it's just hard.
Hustle everybody into place, especially if you're the one that has the vision for the thing.
Sure.
If it's not like this, like, hey, we're all buddies, and like, oh, you know what we should do? Is like, and you just kind of come together through a collective vision, like which can happen, but it's like seems more rare these days because we're so much more isolated, and it's usually one or two people that have this goal in mind and this kind of vision, and then you're like recruiting people to kind of buy into your goal, buy into your vision.
Yeah.
Oh man, like drummer shows up, like they got their own thing. They're like, I could probably hang out and do this for a while, and until something better comes along, and it's like, or if they're worth their weight in salt, and then it's just going through that process, and then touring with a band full of guys. For me, that was both exciting and fun, but it was also so stinky and so much trouble to deal with, like.
There's some downsides to that.
Yeah.
I went on one tour with Formless, and so I feel like I'm still even like a noob in terms of like touring, but I would say our first like few shows were super awesome. Like the first couple we had one in Vermont, and we like went to a winery, and it was like all fun and games. And then it just sort of like went downhill. Like Kevin, like Kurt is like me, and like had to miss a show, and then we were all just like not vibing, and
oh man,
which is like a rough time. We definitely didn't like we definitely lost some money from it, type of thing. Didn't really like properly like figure out how much things were gonna cost, and all that stuff. But it was still a good time and like a good experience. But having that many people, or just having that many artistic voices, is just hard. Like I commend bands that are able to do it and like stay friends. I just think it's like for anyone, I'm sure, even if you mesh well, it's just like a lot of decisions to make, and somebody's not gonna be happy, and
a lot of work, a lot of communication, and usually it's like somebody thinks they're communicating correctly and then, or efficiently, and then there's just not enough information for the other people to make good decisions along the way, or whatever. But or people just don't like to show up, or people like to be late, whatever.
So many things.
Endless amounts of things, right?
Yes.
Were you raised like with any religion or?
Yeah. So I was raised Methodist, and I went to Sunday school. And I was like part of a youth group for a while, so I was very, I was like fairly Christian for like the beginning years of my life. And yeah, I mean, we were just having a little conversation about this, and it's actually interesting. Like looking back, I don't regret any of it. I feel like it was all very important on my journey of kind of understanding the world and religion, and I think my beliefs have become a bit more just general in terms of spirituality and like synchronization and some of the things we were talking about. So that's kind of where I'm at, but I'm leaving it kind of open. So.
What do you think happens when we die?
I definitely don't think we deteriorate into nothing, and one of my best friends in the whole world just told me this, and it really resonated with me. And I don't think anything that we've put into the universe, energy-wise, and like in our time here, goes to waste. I think it all rejuvenates. And I think it all kind of is put into other things, and like sort of like a rebirth type of thing. So I strongly believe in some type of afterlife, but I don't know what afterlife that necessarily is. Another aspect of this that I've had a really strong presence in my life is like ghosts.
Really? Ooh,
And,
tell me about that.
Yeah, and ghosts that sort of have come to me in my sleep and via like sleep paralysis.
Whoa.
I guess we're just gonna go there.
Yeah, just go there.
Let's just go there.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Ever since I was a kid, I've had extremely vivid nightmares and just like incredibly like vivid dreams of like I think what some people consider to be astral projection. So I would have I call them dreams because that's how I remember them, but I don't necessarily know at this point. I feel like sometimes you alter your memories into different things as you grow older, and
like we're talking about like out of body experiences, like where you remotely like view something else going on in the world type of thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
So like for example, I had an experience like that when I was a kid, like in my house. Like I was like, my body was in my bed, but I was like floating on the floor and like on the stairs and like around my house. And so yeah, like that sounds pretty crazy. And I think back, and I was having a lot of those experiences actually right before I moved to LA. There's this room in my family's house on the Cape that I would always have like crazy dreams and like nightmares in it, and I didn't know why. And it got to the point where I like actually saw figures like at the foot of my bed, and figures like floating in the air. And that's just something that I believe to be some kind of energy or like alternate space that exists. Like and that's just some kind of experience that I feel like is unexplained to me, and I just have to kind of make sense of it. So my sense of it is that I think there are different realms that exist. I don't know much about them, but I think they're there.
Sure. Yeah. No, and I'm a fan of anybody that's had the of hearing these stories from these type of experiences, because I too definitely believe that there are multiple different frequencies on which consciousness exists.
Yes.
And obviously none of us truly know the reality of how it all works, right?
I can't explain it.
But I'm curious. Was there? Did you feel like there was a communication of any kind? Was there any? What was happening? Was there anything that they were trying to tell you?
So I would say, so this is interesting to look back now, because I think I was so frightened of the idea of it to begin with when it was happening that I just ran away from it, and then like I actually physically ran away. Like I ran out of my room.
Wow,
It was like horrified. I think that at that point in my life, I wasn't quite ready, or I wouldn't have been quite ready to go to that next step, and I kind of like made that decision and like kind of blocked it out for a while. And I didn't have experiences like that for a few years, and some things have just sort of happened to me in the past year. And so I wonder if that happened again, like would I be able to do that? And part of me feels like, well, maybe there's like because it's less scary. I feel like we just assume those things are scary, and we kind of assume that maybe it's a negative thing. And I've met people recently that have had full-on communication with spirits and things around, whatever you want to call them. I don't know. So I do think there are levels of that, and it really just depends on like where you're at spiritually.
So when it happened to you, it sounds like you were too shocked to like catch to engage, and there wasn't like not like you heard words or like there was any visual that was trying to communicate a statement or of any kind to you.
Right. So yeah, for me at that time, it was just they were there. I don't think they were trying to necessarily communicate anything particular, but again, like it was just kind of like I saw it and then I kind of like bolted.
Mm-hmm.
But it happened a few times. So like there were a few times where I was just like I was like, I'm gonna try to ignore this right now and like go to sleep and pretend like I'm not seeing this because I didn't want to like accept it.
Sure.
So
it's like pull the covers over your head and like it'll go away type of thing.
Exactly.
Hopefully. Did you? So you said there was a couple of times that whereas you felt like you woke up and had sleep paralysis where you couldn't move and you saw.
Right. So that is sort of like a series of things, but yeah. So sleep paralysis when I was a kid is something I'd have like very intensively, and I would just be like, I think people, maybe some listeners have experienced this, but basically you're just like in your bed. Your eyes are like completely open but you can't move, and so it's honestly like horrifying because it just feels like you're almost like caught inside your own body, but you can't communicate, you can't move. So that just would happen to me a lot when I was a kid, like maybe like 4 or 5.
Freaky.
Yeah, and it's just a really scary thing, and it's like nightmares are already scary when you're a kid, so it was like kind of a lot for me. But it's something that's actually really inspired me because it just makes you really curious about sort of the universe and afterlife and all those things. So it's been like a huge inspiration to me in terms of my writing, and you'll see that actually in the Dreameater EP.
Well, I was gonna say Dreameater. Is that inspired by like maybe eating these bad dreams and like turning it into something positive, maybe, or something, or what is that?
It's transformed into so many things. But what's great is that like we at the time. So Dreameater came about because Danny and I were trying to think of a name, and we were just like, he was like, I think it should be about something metal and sick, and I was like, because there's no metalheads in EDM, and at the time, like, there kind of wasn't.
I don't know your boyfriend, but I like him already.
I think he was thinking, he's kind of like that Pantera level of excitement, but like all the time.
All right, bring him over next time.
Oh, he would be a great podcast person, yeah. So he was like, yeah, it should be metal or something like black metal, and I was like, sick, okay, but I was like, what about like Pokemon? Because I'm like a huge Pokemon fan, just like was when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were just talking about like different like Pokemon moves and like Pokemons that we like. So if anyone knows the Dreameater move, it's like, I think it's like Ghastly or like one of the ghost Pokemons, or several ghost Pokemons, I guess, can use it. And yeah, basically the Pokemon eats your dreams and takes your energy out of you.
So it's the Dreameater is a move that a Pokemon can do.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's how it originated.
Got it. That's cool. All right.
Yeah. So, but I guess it can kind of evolve to like a lot of different things because just dreams in general have like taken up like a whole piece of my life and kind of like eaten up like my thoughts and in my writing and my artistry, and like so it's been just a huge part of my life. Yeah, so it's kind of transformed. We're having a logo kind of based around it that I'm super excited about, and I'll have more to say once that's
Is it Pokemon font?
to be. Maybe.
Dreameater and Pokemon font.
They might sue us. Who knows?
I don't know. I think you can kind of get away with, if you make it a little bit, different enough,
Oh, that's interesting.
That's cool. So then what would you say because what I think is cool, and I just want to kind of like preface this by saying it's really cool to see in the last like 5 to 7 years have more visibility of female players in the world, like just females that are empowered to do their projects the way they want to do them, not just a flashy side guitar player for a big name, or like not that that's bad or anything, but just like there's always like kind of like the hot female bass player or guitar player that like for Michael Jackson or for or for Jeff Beck or something like that, but like instead of that it just being that, like and instead of it being just and I'm not talking trash at all, like not like just an all-female tribute band or whatever, but there's just this really cool wave, and it seems like to me in the last 5 to 7 years that of females like get to do their thing because of technology being so readily available and being able to broadcast yourself. How do you feel about that movement? And do you see yourself as a part of it? Because I do.
Thank you so much, first of all, and I am super excited about it, and I feel like it's a lot of it is like the energy of just like females going out and doing their thing, and like seeing them do that and being like, oh, okay, I can also do that. And I've just had like, you know, a series of people just message me being like, that is so inspiring that you are doing what you want to do and not just like, you know, you're exactly like you said, like, you know, there are different roles for a guitar player, for a female guitar player, and you know, those have been done. And some people do it really well, but it's like, I think to go out there and be brave enough to just kind of stand on your own in that way is something that is kind of like happening right now, and it's super exciting. And it's like women can do that and like make something like incredible like on their own, and so it's super exciting for me to see other females do that and to be a part of that. And appreciate acknowledging that. I definitely want to be a part of it.
Yeah, well, you appear to be, and I'm curious, like, I imagine that there's some probably awesome young females that come to you for the lessons because you're like, oh, Annie does cool stuff. I want to learn from her.
That is so exciting to me. And one of my students is, oh my God, she's going to be such a rock star. Like, she's already learning Ableton, and she's like, I think she's like 14.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, so she's super talented. She has a great ear. She's already writing. She's already like kind of like meeting like some really big artists and stuff, and it's just like I just feel like this next generation is going to be like even more amazing and like incredible. So it's going to be, you're going to really see a lot of female artists like give their all, and I think that's going to be really cool.
I'm looking forward to that. And I really, part of my statement around that too is that I think what is really cool is that, again, because too, like, I grew up, 76 kid, I'll be 43 here in another month or so. And so I was alive in the 80s, you know, and as a kid and in the 90s and stuff, and watched things shift, you know, like as they went through it, how women have just kind of always played like this other, like they were the enhancement role, right? They weren't like the focal point for their creativity and for and in the way, not always, you know, like you had pockets of it, but. But here, especially in a male-dominated guitar market, in aggressive music, you even have been in an aggressive music genre of the thing. It's not like you're just playing guitar and being a female. It's like you're like in this other kind of even more niche market, niche place. So it's great to see that these projects are coming to light and that it's been constantly influencing the next generation. So like I think of like you and Yvette Young and Neely Brush and all these
both of them.
all these amazing players that they're out and about doing Melanie Faye and there's like a lot of young players that they're kind of like, you know, just carving out something really interesting for the next generation to kind of like chew on. Where again, I think it's always kind of been there, but I think we're getting more of it, and it's just easier to be more visible. In sadly, you know, male-dominated world in a lot of aspects, right? So.
Absolutely. I'm super excited about it, and I really do feel like there's just like this big energy that's like happening with it all, and I think that, you know, ultimately, like, you know, what we're all fighting for is that like a woman's gonna put out music and it's gonna be just like, F yeah, that music's sick, and there's like no mention of gender. It's just gonna be like, right, you know,
because part of what I was gonna say too is for the longest time it's like, she's pretty good, like for a girl, right? Like, I mean, I don't know how many times, like, have you heard that like endlessly throughout your life, or is that like not as common, or?
Definitely have heard it a lot. Yeah, I mean, I think it's different when you kind of grow up with like a really supportive family. Like for me, like I don't think I ever had the you can't do this because you're a girl thing like from anybody that I cared about, which for me was like, I know, thank God, right? But my dad and my mom and my brother, just like my whole family has always just been like, you go girl. Like I play like one chord, my dad's like, yeah, that's awesome. Like,
you're a winner.
You're so good. And so they're always just encouraging of whatever it was I was interested in. So I always felt like I could do anything. Like it was never like there was never like a wall for me that was like, you can't do that, climb that wall because you're a girl. So because of that, I feel like the commentary I've had has never really like stuck with me or like upset me too much. Like definitely like some negativity positivity online has definitely like beat me up before, but like in terms of the gender thing, like that's in some ways to me has been actually kind of positive because people are expecting you to not be great or like because that of their weird assumptions that they have, and then you kind of just like, well, you're wrong, or like you show them, and it's kind of a bit more like maybe they're surprised, but or you know they don't think you're capable of that, and I think you know the more we just keep putting it out there that it's possible is like the better. So
yeah, I think you're right. I think like continuing to be a positive example of one way that it could be done. Right, so each of the great players that we were starting to mention, and there's a whole long list of them that we could go through, but each of them have their own unique style and their own unique vision, and by each person putting out their example, like, hey, look, I'm not the greatest, I'm not the best, whatever. It's just, I just like to do it like this, at least for right now.
Yeah.
And you make an example of the thing, then it creates a pathway. You know, just like a new when you learn something new, you're like, oh, like it's kind of slow at first, and then the neural pathway begins to set in, your muscle memory sets in, and before you know it, you've got kind of a groove, and you're like, oh, I can do that quicker, faster, easier without thinking about it. Like now that lick is easy. Well, it was super stressful at first, you know, but now I can almost look away from the fretboard and almost do the thing. There's a kind of a societal way I think that also happens, right? Because each of us, whether we really are conscious of it or not, we're giving license. Like by what we do, we're saying this is okay.
Yes.
And so if you're out doing something negative and, you know, like harmful, you're saying, hey, this is okay, right? And so you're giving unspoken license to others that view you to do similar or the same. So when you do just be awesome you, Annie Shred, and you do the thing that you give license, you're like, there's all these other people that look up and go, oh, that's cool. Like, I'll do something that makes me feel that way, or makes other people feel that way, hopefully, you know?
Exactly, but in your own unique, special way.
Right.
I love that, and that's something, I feel like I've tried to kind of cultivate in the past year or so, even like in like small things, like in the morning, like I like meditate. My therapist actually got me on this, and I was like, I go and meditate like outside on my porch, because other people can see that I'm meditating, and that's just like kind of a like, hey, maybe I should meditate, or like maybe I should, or maybe that's something to look into, or just like, you know, be open to. And it's like, I think just like a mentality that we can have across the board, but especially as artists, I think can be just like a really powerful thing. And that's what all the artists that I grew up loving did, and with like no remorse, you know, type of thing. And I think that's the way to really kind of break ground too, and just keep pushing.
That's awesome. I hadn't thought about that, but that is a good idea. Because there's a lot of, I mean, you see certain things done in the park or out in public. Meditation is not often one of them. Like you might see somebody you don't necessarily know, because you could be meditating almost anywhere, anytime. Yeah, true. Depending on the way you do
your
it,
pose.
Or your pose or whatever. And like with yoga too, you know, yoga and tai chi, like certain things are like kind of permitted out in the park or in public. Yeah. But I think a lot of people don't do them, like that might do them if it were a little more socially acceptable. If we looked at somebody doing yoga in the park, and we go, oh man, good, he's taking care of himself. She's really, you know, good. That's common. That's basic. Instead, we're in a weird place. Oftentimes, that most of our society is like, oh, they're showing off. Like, oh, they're like, what are they doing? Like, you know, and maybe they are. You know, sure. Like there's that potential too, right? Yep. You know, there's always that potential, like for an exhibitionist or. You know, which I mean, there's not necessarily anything wrong with showing off either. Absolutely. That's fine if that's part of like who you are and you're a performer, like and you're out, you know, performing. Like, nothing wrong there. But again, giving license, like just being a small part of the world that like says, yeah, it's okay to be you, and like, this is part of how I be me. You know, and that's meditating on my porch. You know. Yeah. Where other people can kind of see that like that's. Something that I'm a regular. I'm doing it every morning, you know. Here I am again. Yeah, because they might even though they might not consciously go, oh, she's meditating. Oh, maybe I should meditate.
Yeah, that might not even be their first thought.
That might be their thing, but they might go, oh, it's just nice to have somebody that like seems to be out every day at around the same time and like enjoying.
Maybe even the schedule of it like inspires them, or maybe they just think I'm like a douchebag. I don't know, like, but like maybe makes them laugh. Who knows? Like that's where the positivity comes in, I guess, right?
Unfortunately, there's always somebody that has to press the dislike button, the thumbs down
I
button,
know.
right? Like even on the best stuff.
It does exist, and that, I mean, I remember when that first became a thing, and it was like, oh, where's your dislike button? But it's like, it's like, I mean, come on, it's the world. Like you can't not have the dislike button. Like, I mean, that's just part of. We can't like shelter ourselves too much here.
It is funny though, like I mean, and I was just on this this Kiesel artist jam thing, and like it was really cool. All these artists get to take a little solo, and the mega jam from international, different players and stuff, and
Oh, that's right.
super cool. But like there's like even on something that's just really benign and it's a bunch of great players, there's just somebody that always has to come through and smash the dislike button, thumbs down, like this is dumb. Like it's like and I'm like, okay, you could just move on and find something you like, but I get it.
You know what I find with like internet trolls and just like people who hate and just like kind of exude like negativity online is like they usually like just need a hug or like they need love. You know what I mean? Like, and it's so funny because like ever since I've tried to just like out nice people online that say negative things about me or like maybe are just like kind of rude about something. And then I start talking to them and just like, even like send them like a heart emoji. They're like, oh, actually, I really like your music. And it's just like, or they'll be like, actually, it's really cool. I mean, I didn't mean that. Or it's just like, they've needed some kind of, like they're mad about something. You know what I mean? Like when you're negative, like, I know what it's like to be negative. I've definitely been that person before, other times in my life. But when you're negative and looking at things that way, you're usually just like, kind of like sad. Which,
right.
Maybe that.
Hurting inside often.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you see that, maybe you can try to just beat them with kindness. Wow, I'm turning into a hippie.
No, the best kind. No, I mean, like I just recently posted this thing. I found it on Instagram. I'm just like a meme redistributor. That's like my.
Send me some.
I will. I'll put you in the rotation because I realized that there are the internet is good for a lot of things. We spend a lot of time there. But maybe one of my number one favorite things is our memes, and like my brother and one of our good friends from Chico started this like private or kind of semi-private group on Facebook called Anti-Grumpus Malumpus, and it's like it's our meme dump, right?
Oh
and so there's nothing political or religious allowed in there.
Only memes.
Yeah, only memes, and it can be dirty, it can be like kind of risque, but just nothing political,
Strictly
nothing religious. And so we're just anything funny we find that hasn't been dumped in there, we dump in there constantly, right? and so I'm like always dumping stuff in there and then pulling stuff out. And when it's very applicable to a good friend, I'm texting him out like, starting little mini, text wars about certain subjects based on the meme,
That's hilarious.
So I don't know. I just think that's one of my favorite things. I'm not sure why was I even saying that?
Just like internet positivity, like memes bringing light to the world.
yeah, positivity. That's definitely it. Oh, I was gonna say that just that I think it's great that you try to turn it around. When the negativity comes your way, because I think so often you're so on the mark with that. Like these people are hurting. Like generally, like and when you find yourself, if you can think back to a time when you were just in it and like nothing was good. Mm-hmm. And people came to you like, Annie, it's gonna be okay. Like, let's just go out and go for a walk. Let's go like shopping or let's go do anything. You're like, no, like I hate everything right now, and you suck too. Go away, friend. That are trying to be nice to me.
Yeah.
Like when you're like it's when we get locked into something. Oh, it's 222, by the way.
High five.
Just had to check that. I was like, well. But when you're in that place, if you can transport yourself back, you're like, wow, it was painful. Like I was in a painful place, and like and I couldn't allow anything to be good, and that was definitely my point of view. That was caught. Like the world was just doing what the world does, but my filter to what my lens was obscured, right?
Filter.
And my filter, yeah, and you like that concept of remembering that like you don't really know what everybody's dealing with, so like you just like be kind. Oh, I know. Because one of the memes that I posted, circling
Bring
back around.
To the memes.
Yeah, I'll tell you what it was. It was like, I have to pull it up real quick. But I'm such an advocate for being kind in the world, you know, because it's so easy to not be, right? It's like the easier thing to like talk shit and try to be a critic about everything. And I'm not like a fan of like the modern day cynicism and like just critique for critique's sake necessarily. Like it has its own small place, but it's just it's kind of almost an unnecessary thing, you know, in a way. But I love this meme. I have no idea who made it, but it says, in an age of performative cruelty, kindness is punk as fuck. Be punk as fuck.
Oh, I love that.
So I love that as well.
It is punk to be nice, isn't it? Right now.
It's kind of like that. I don't know if it was Orwell or whoever said it's like in an age of like lies and deceit. Like truth is the ultimate revolution. Like be truthful or something.
Oh yeah, so that's like a little
kind of a play on it almost. I don't know if they were trying to do that or not, but it's in times of universal deceit, you know, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. I think that's the quote.
Nice.
I think it's George Orwell or I don't know.
One of
those. Don't hold me to that. But I like that concept and it not to paint us into a place of like the world's fucked, so everybody, you know, be nice. It's not so much. It's just that we have moved into this place where it's too easy to flare up and to throw about stuff that, you know, talk about and like cause trouble when you're not like an expert on the thing.
Oh yeah, that's a huge thing right now, or just in the world.
Right. I mean, we look at like our president and stuff like that. Like they're not, they don't really know what they're talking about most of the time, and so it's just kind of like, what? All right.
And just being like an expert on things, I think that's an LA thing too. And let me know maybe in a couple months what you think about this. But I think that there's a big energy in LA that's kind of like you want to be the person that knows about the event or the building or the club or the celebrity, or you want to be like, oh yeah, I know that person, or I was in a room with that person, or I know exactly what bar you're talking about and what street it's at. It's like there's some kind of like know-it-all mentality. And I actually had this amazing revelation with Danny and another best friend of mine, Eric Alper. He's part of this band called Brevelsire. I don't know if you've heard of them.
No.
They're really awesome. Boston death metal band.
Cool.
And we just had this big conversation about this same thing. And we were like, we should start a movement called I Don't Know. And just wear t-shirts. Because nobody says that anymore. Everybody wants to be the expert. Everybody wants to like kind of play like they're the master of the whatever thing that they want to be knowledgeable about. And it's like, it's so boring to me. It's like, why don't we just like, it'd be so much more interesting to me to like be curious together and like kind of like try to figure it out. And like, that's what I feel like life is ultimately, like, because I have no idea like what's going on ever. And it's just like, we're all in that together. Like we should just be in it together, like trying to figure it all out, not trying to like condescend or boast or.
I love that.
Yeah. High five.
I high five again.
Should we make t-shirts?
Yeah. It's like I don't know, or I when you said it, I was like, I want one that says I have no clue.
Yes.
Like, you know, I have no clue. Like, do you know about this? I have no clue.
Yeah.
Like, tell me about it. I'm curious.
Exactly.
Like, I have a shirt somewhere. Like, it's a yoga shirt. It says stay curious, stay human, or something like that. I forget what it is. But I'm a fan of the curiosity movement, because I think in curiosity there's humility. And it's because I think that we've been along the way, either in the family unit, somewhat along the way, that we were shamed for not having the right answers. I think that's like one of the birthplaces of this thing. But the society has taken it on too, where it's like, if you don't have the answers, if you're not quick to react and don't have something quirky and like perfect to say, then like next, we're moving on. Like it's like, you know, like you're kind of disregarded. You know, and it's sad. It's sad because and so people want to like in order to try to like prove their worth, they'll kind of fabricate a little bit and say,
yeah, it's just honest.
Oh yeah, I totally know. I know. Like I'm worthy of knowing, and I know enough to be worth your time. So keep listening to me. You know, where and it's come up a couple times. I've probably said it a few other times in a few other podcasts, but I love that somebody brought up to me, because everybody wants to be interesting.
Yes.
Okay, and I thought, oh, that's really interesting that everybody, and myself too. Like, I mean, of course, it feels good to be a center of attention. It feels good to have to feel like you maybe are. Maybe not expert, but you've got experience in the field, and somebody's listening to your words of wisdom or how you do it or whatever. And there's times in life where we get that, but like we can't be the center of attention for all subjects all the time, and we can't know it all, right? So
absolutely, we're only human.
Which that was the name of my band, by the way.
Oh my God! Yeah, there's so many high fives.
I know, so many high fives. But I think. What a wonderful movement that would be. I don't know. I have no clue. But I am curious about what you're talking about. Can you tell me more? And when you and that was the whole thing was like, if you want to be interesting, seek first to be interested.
Yes. Ooh, you're taking it to other levels. Ultimately, are there any kind of limitations on what we talk about here?
No, go for it.
Okay, so. me and Danny and my friend Eric had kind of like a psychedelic experience. Maybe I won't go into detail, but
you can tell me anything you want. Go
okay.
for it.
We had an experience where I actually hadn't seen each other for years. So we
and
really
Danny?
hung out. Me and Eric and
Okay.
Danny. We were best friends in college and like saw each other all the time. Like practically like had Valentine's Day, like three of us. Like
Got it. Okay.
like good times, like
Amazing.
really good bros, but just like hadn't really seen each other. And so yeah, I mean, it's for me and Danny, it stemmed from like having this sort of just painted way about LA, how we felt like just like the environment was just everyone kind of trying to be really impressive and like kind of like boastful and like just it's just like a really toxic thing, honestly. And I think it kind of wears you down. And like something I learned about myself this year is that I'm like an empath, I guess. And like I kind of like super emotional and like kind of sensitive to like energies and stuff. And
me too.
Yeah. Oh, are you an empath too?
Totally.
That makes sense. Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. So for me, I had to kind of realize that I need to be really careful with my energy and like not be around that toxicity in a way, just like in terms of like, maybe certain parties to go to or just like kind of conversations I'm around. And so we just had this really big epic talk about how important it was to us to kind of not be experts and kind of in all aspects of life, like in music, in business, in politics even, because ultimately, like, I feel like we all should have the mentality of kind of helping each other because we all are trying to figure this thing out. Like, nobody's the expert at life. Like, how can you claim to be? If you are, I would assume that you're kind of wrong, honestly, because you don't, how come this person has more foundation than this person? Obviously, there's education, there's all these other things, but ultimately, we were like, let's stay on the path of, like, being the ones who are curious because that feels more comforting, and then we can kind of just, like, check in with each other, and it's, I think, something to hold strong if you live in this town, because there is just that big energy of kind of, like, the condescending, like, I'm the expert, I'm the master of all these topics and things. And I think to kind of find that inner peace in yourself and to your circle of people is to like stay curious and stay just not boastful, I guess, about what you know, even like share too.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, staying open, right? Because I think one of the easy things to do, and I think that all of us have done it at some point and still maybe continue to do it in certain areas of our life, is that we're keen on having answers to something. Like, okay, so if I've got the answer, that makes me feel safe. Like there's an element of safety when I know for sure that this is that or whatever, like that. You put it into a verbal, like, descriptive box, and then we've explained it away. But yet all the things, capital A-L-L things, like a lot of them have been explained away, but like we still don't know. we still like
We're
we
always gonna have that.
yeah, we put some sentences next to the physical thing and said, this is that, but is it? You know, like I mean, you know, and is that all it is? Likely not. Likely it's like thousands of other things. There's thousands of other ways of seeing the same thing. So when somebody, so it's easy, you know, like that's why religion can be tricky, because it seeks to give like absolute answers to something that is absolutely not quantifiable, right? And we can't know until we experience it for ourselves. And then it's too late for us to like usually come back, unless we're, you know, gonna come sit on your chest while you have a, you know, like a sleep terror, you know, like
while I sleep.
Yeah, it's horrible, but and then not communicate effectively, apparently.
Yeah. I guess not. That did not
just scare the crap out of you. But yeah, like we would love to have these things all squared away, and so then that creates a weird thing where like, well, I think I know, like when somebody really like, I believe this, you're like, and then new information comes and they're like, nah, I already believe this. You're like, but you see that this is like new factual information. No. But I that I already had the right answer. You're like, but that was maybe the right answer for 2 years ago, but like now we're here and like okay, you can't accept that? That's weird.
There's a piece to that I think is super important. I'm glad you said that, because it's like part of the like I don't know kind of mentality is also to understand that we're constantly evolving and like constantly going to have new opinions and experiences that shape our thoughts and beliefs into different things. And so I think there's like a really strong piece of that we just have to remember that we're always changing colors and growing and evolving and like going to the next levels of things. So that's super important.
It's funny that you kind of paint the story around like how the general feeling of LA and like the kind of a hierarchical, you know, like people like wanting to know that they, you know, are professionals at this, or like you know, like the all knowing about something. I had a couple friends when I was like talking about moving here, they're like, oh man, everybody I know that's ever moved there, man, they change, you know, I don't want you to change. And I'm like, what do you think's gonna happen to me, man? Like, they're like,
I'm gonna stay the same.
Yeah, I'll be the basic same person, but I'll be who I am living there. And you know, everywhere you go, like, does change you to a certain degree. But like, it was, I heard through further conversation, it was like that they're worried of kind of me becoming that type of thing. Where like, oh, you're gonna go there, and then all of a sudden you're gonna be the cool guy that, like, or you're gonna try to be this way, and you'll adopt an LA personality that, then we're not gonna like you. And I was like, oh, that's interesting that you would even. It's interesting that you would even like kind of like place that on me.
Yeah, it's like kind of insulting.
Yeah, it's like, you know, like we've been friends a long time. Like what? Okay, like maybe, you know, but at the same time I heard it and I was like, okay, what about this could be true? What about this could be valid and be could really relate to something that could arise for me, right? Okay, so like, because I'm a fan of like, this is a part of the staying open, I think, like especially when you get negative criticism. I'm a real big fan of that concept of like, okay, even when somebody is trashing you, all right, can I for 2 seconds be objective? What about what they're saying might be realistic, might be true, might be worthy of consideration?
Yes.
You know, most of it I'm going to disregard. All the heavy, like, you know, rhetoric. It's just like, okay, you're trying to feel better about yourself. You're putting me down. But you know what? You did mention that you felt like my timing was off here. I wonder if that's true. Let me check it out. Maybe I can practice more, or what, you know, in a kind of an objective way that is not like beating yourself up and saying, oh, I'm the worst because they found me out. You know, like they figured out that I'm not perfect. Oh, right. Well, but you already knew that shit. Come on. Like why not just you go down this road of humility and like, well, they might have been right about that one little thing. Good on you, but we're not going to talk about, like, we're not going to have the conversation anymore if you're crazy, you know?
Exactly. Oh, I really like that perspective, because I think it's very true, and I think that's the only way to really have a real proper conversation with somebody is to actually debate and kind of like go back and forth and have different opinions. And ultimately, if you can have like an open conversation like that with somebody, I think you can get to like a better place. Like both of you can. Whereas it's not just like, you know, as long as it's not just like an ego thing, you know, which I think a lot of times debates turn into that. But yeah, even just like with negative comments online about like your guitar solo or like the way you're playing something, it's honestly, I think you're right. I think it's really good to be open to all criticism, even the negative ones, because who knows? Yeah, they could be right about something, or they could be like, your tone is shit. And I mean, sometimes they've been right. It's like, I probably should take a look at that. Like, maybe EQ it better, or like, you know, throw like a mastering plugin on or something. And it's like, why not? I mean, it's all criticism, and that's part of just, you know, putting yourself out there as well.
Yeah, and I think that the part of maybe a big part of like an artist's reaction, our reaction to negative feedback, other than, you know, nobody wants to have negative feedback really, but everybody wants to be like, oh, you're the best, that killed, like everything was amazing, but that becomes silly and gratuitous and not like if you don't ever get any real feedback, then you're like, oh, well then I'm great, and then how do you grow if you don't ever get roughed up?
Yeah.
Right. So there's kind of this conversation too that's like been happening on Rogan with a few of his guests too. Like I noticed that because I think Chris Rock and a few others in the comedian world have been talking about like, hey, you know, everybody's anti-bullying, but like almost all these comedians that you love were bullied, and that roughing them up. Not to say that we're looking for people to rough people up, you know. It's like, but at the same time, they all feel like they wouldn't be who they were without some resistance in the world, right? 100%. If you were just like if there was nothing to rail against, you wouldn't be as strong as you are right now. You wouldn't be as resilient as you are. I mean, that's why we go to the gym, is to pick up things that are heavy and have resistance and apply stress to the body so that the muscles grow, so that we can then do more, right? And that body's healthier.
And get stronger mentally, physically, all those things.
Yeah, so that's one way of like kind of like countering the, okay, I see it's coming at me, but you have to have the right point of view around it. Sometimes it's, you know, it can trigger you in a way, and I think the trigger, at least for me, I've noticed like people, how do they call it? It's I forget the term for it exactly, but it's like, imposter syndrome. Like the more successful you are, like there's a feeling of like, okay, any minute somebody's gonna find out I'm a fake.
Oh, I fully have that, I think. Or I have had that, actually.
Right.
Oh,
and
that's interesting. That's called something.
Because like I didn't know it was. I think Rogan actually is the one that said it the other day, and I was like, oh, it is called something, because I was kind of attributing to like survivor's guilt. Like if you make it out and you're like successful and all your friends aren't, like the survivor's guilt's more like attributed to like natural disaster or something that happens. Like if you were the only one that didn't get shot in a mass shooting, you're like, fuck, why didn't I get shot? And like you have this guilt about like not being a part of the thing.
Oh, okay.
But it's kind of it's different in the way that like you're like, you finally become successful and things finally start working out. And I hear this more and more now. The bigger the stars get, that internally they might not talk about it very openly, but they're like, oh, I've just been waiting like my whole life, like my whole career, even though I've got an Emmy and a Grammy and blah blah blah. I'm just waiting for somebody to go, ha, I know you're not real. I know that you're just a regular person that has a hard time like dealing with life.
Wow.
And you're like, you see me, that's and so when somebody online comes close to to the thing, you're like, oh, you're telling shit, Annie, and you're like,
you're right.
You're right. I've been a fake all along. I was just faking it until I made it, and I didn't even make it this far before you figured it out. You know.
I told it shit.
But if we can not let that, we can even at least see the trigger, and then go, oh, it feels like it's making me feel like an imposter. Interestingly, can I, take a deep breath? What about this might be true? What could I take into consideration, and then like disregard the rest,
Totally. I think the way to beat that imposter syndrome is to like stop just like finding ways to invalidate yourself, which is something I do like on a daily basis. Just like,
same.
I feel like I'm always like surprised when something like cool or unique happens, and I'm always worried that it is on the breaking point. Like I could do something like, oh my god, I just said sent an email like in the wrong way, and that person's not going to work with me anymore. Like a type of thing. Like I'm just like I'm so really analytical about things. Like, and my boyfriend makes fun of me about it all the time because it's actually like I think an issue, and it's something to definitely like to grow for me. But yeah, just invalidating yourself. It's something that's really hard to not do for me.
It is. And it's funny because last night I had it happen, which I don't normally do this, but I was so thankful that I had a friend there that kind of called me out. Like, and this is a place where I think that is interesting to get to, is to get to a place where you can be thankful for a friend, especially when it's a friend, because like they will hopefully be knowing you better than like a random internet troll, right? So when they have insight into your world and into your being and how you normally act, or like, kind of know your potential. And like I taught my first yoga class, like public one in LA since I've been here last night. Thank you. I'm really excited about it. But I was a little nervous though last night. It was and I don't normally ever talk down about myself in this way. But it's like akin to like if you get off stage and you had like a few flubs that were to you super obvious. Yeah. But like probably nobody saw it. And they go, "Oh, Annie, great show," and you're like, "Yeah, it was great, except for like, I mean, I just my tuner wasn't working, and like, and I missed those notes, and like, yeah, all these things." And they're like, "Well, I have no, like, I don't know what you're talking about. You're magic. You're magic. Like, just accept that you're magic." And you're like, you can't do it. I've been there before a long time ago, and then I slowly learned, okay, don't talk about the performance. Just say thank you, and like, and just work to have a better performance next time. Like, just say thank you and move on. Don't talk shit about yourself. But like last night, I kind of did the thing where I was like just nervous, and I was like at the end of class, and it was like everybody's leaving. I'm like, and I'll be here next Tuesday, and I'll be better than this time or whatever. And my friend Eva was like. We went out to dinner afterwards. She was like, "Hey, that thing you said, like, I know you're probably just kind of like nervously joking, but don't do that. Like, don't talk shit about yourself. Like, you're so good. Like, don't do it. Like, I've been to a bunch of your classes, and like, I know you're fine. You're fine." And those people all thought it was great. In the moment that you start to say something, then you give them reason to question your situation, but you don't.
And they maybe weren't even never going to question it.
Yeah, so don't do it. Just like
I've fully done that. It's always right after some kind of performance, so like the immediate after. Like I think that when you're the most vulnerable to say something, so
it's fresh in your head. You're still sweating from missing those 3 notes.
Yeah, but somebody comes up to you, "Great job," and you're like.
You're like, I can't even accept. I mean, okay, thanks.
Yeah, it's I feel like that's like a moment you just gotta fake it, like for yourself, because it's just super hard. Because I've definitely done that before.
Right. It could be tough. Well, I want to wrap this up a little bit with you, but my favorite, like one of my favorite, it's all my favorite. But the third, like, major part that I like to know about is what have you been listening to lately? And extra points for artists that aren't as well known, because I like the little person to be lifted up.
Ooh, that's super cool. Okay, so
But don't be afraid of telling me like big artists too.
Oh, okay. I mean, this is like a semi-big artist, but Virtual Self. It's okay. So there's a big DJ. His name's Porter Robinson. He's got a side project called Virtual Self. That's like incredible. It's just like it's electronic music, and I think a lot of metalheads would dig it. So if there are metalheads listening, I definitely recommend Virtual Self. Self-titled EP, I believe.
Cool.
Ooh, what else? I feel like I feel like I'm just listening to so much of my own music right now. I'm like writing, like, I'm trying to think of another good one. There's this really dope artist that I just met that is a top liner for EDM, and she just put out like a new song, her first like original single. Her name's Kara, so I would definitely recommend checking her out.
How do you spell it?
Karra.
Okay. Yeah. And that's just how you find her, Kara?
Yeah. And she's super awesome. Just met her, and like we did like a cover for Instagram. If you guys check out my Instagram, you can check that out as well.
That's at Annie Shred, yeah?
At Annie Shred, yeah. And then also at Dreameater Official. I'm gonna be posting on there more.
Cool.
So. Yeah.
And what would be a couple of your all-time favorite guitar players?
Ooh, okay.
Inspired you?
Love that question. Like 3 or like 2 or 3?
Tell me,
okay.
yeah.
So, first one is actually kind of interesting. I think Billy Joe Armstrong, Green Day, because I just learned every single song that Green Day made when I was a kid, and that was just like the right hand, like rhythmic playing, like that's the way I felt any kind of rhythm.
It's legit. He's awesome.
Yeah, he's
great songwriter
badass.
too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Love that band. Jeff Loomis.
Yeah.
Just because he's the god.
Oh my god. What? Talk about a confident player.
Oh
like,
yeah.
Just like his style is just so like in your face. I love it.
Absolutely. And then one other, Mohammed Sweetman of Necrophages, because he's just a legend and probably one of the more influential guitar players. Oh, and I have another original artist, Diane Ward.
Oh
Have you
yeah.
heard of them?
Oh yeah.
Oh hell yeah.
Amazing.
Oh, they're like probably my favorite band right now, ever.
It makes sense because of like the duo that you're working with, right? Because they're a duo, and like you're working on your duo setup.
Definitely, and I just think like aesthetically, like visually, sonically, like they have this really cohesive like movie that I just don't ever want to stop watching, and that's something that like Danny and I have been kind of curating like for Dreameater and like in our own unique way, and it was super inspirational to me because I just think their music videos are like incredible and like weird and unique and just like stuff you can watch over and over again and get new things out of. So that's a band that I would also check out.
I've seen a few of their things. You have to send me some of your favorites so that I can check them out. It's funny that you bring up that it's Ninja is the guy, right?
He's the rapper.
There's I don't know if you've seen it, but somewhere there's like an animated. What was it on? Was it? I don't know who did the animation or who he was telling the story to, but he was like telling the story of going to like, is it Kanye's house or something like that? He got invited to Kanye's house to play basketball or something like that.
Oh my god, I know exactly
you know
what you're talking about.
It's hilarious, and he just like feels like way out, and it was like
out of his element.
Yeah.
Like Drake and Kanye are having some kind of epic like showdown.
That's it, Drake and Kanye.
Court.
He was just like, and I was like, wow, that's such a funny story because like I can see he's like that those two are such like punk rock versions of the EDM kind of circuit, like they have the visual look and the attitude and like which is an interesting element overall. Like for the creative, I found that the punk attitude kind of translates to multiple genres, and that's what I think. I don't know that the original punks like in the late 70s going into the early 80s if they could ever really imagine how punk would be applied cross-genrally, because like it's not the same exact thing, but it is the similar, almost identical spirit of the thing.
It's more about the spirit, I think, than anything else. Yeah,
so I find that to be interesting when somebody finds their kind of way of like bucking the system or in like challenging ideas and challenging like what is considered music, what is considered like good, or just what we accept as norm, and can we expand it to also include this new way or this alternate way of hearing or seeing. Yeah, so they definitely do that, I think, for EDM.
I love them. I think they're so dope. Yeah, and they're just like, they add that like gangster element to it that's just like super sick and like unexpected to me. And actually, when I first heard them, I like did not get it at all, and I like kind of hated them for like a day, and then I like listened to the rest of their stuff, saw their music videos, and I was like, totally kidding, like actually love everything about this band.
I think I was kind of similar. I didn't know that I was gonna like them or not. I had a girl I was dating for a minute was like, oh, I really love Diane Twert. I'm like, okay, I'm not sure I get it, but okay, I'll stick with it and see. And then we watched the movie that they were in. Was it had the robot in it, like Chappie or something?
Yeah, just saw that like 2 days ago.
Really? What is the movie? Is it called Chappie?
It's called Chappie. That's right.
Oh, it is called Chappie. Okay, that was hilarious. I just loved them in the movie. So then I was like, oh, I think I like them now. So like
as people, and then when you like people them as people, you tend to like their art.
Now I want to understand their art, or now I can hear their art in a slightly different way.
I was just thinking about that whole idea like earlier today, because there are some artists that like, because I know their story, I love their art, but maybe if I was just listening to their art and I had no idea who they were, like maybe I tastefully wouldn't have been drawn to it, but like that's so different for me because all my friends, like I really, really like support my friends and their art and their music, and I just think it's so interesting too because you get to know like where it stems from and like the depth of it. So that's always super interesting for me. But yeah, it's totally different if you might not like something if you don't know the person, but when you see the music video or you learn about the person, you kind of respect the art more.
Agreed. It's happened in kind of some strange areas where I wasn't expecting. Doing my job over the years, one of them was getting invited out to some country artists, like going out and seeing Miranda Lambert, and like the bass player invited me out, said, "Hey, come out, like, and see what we're up to. Bring, I was dropping off gear or something, and they invited me on the tour bus, and Miranda's there, and everybody's super chill, and like they were just so nice that like I immediately was like, okay, it's hard for me to hate on country music right now because you guys are sweeter than most people in all the other genres. Like I don't even, they like treated me like I was family. Like they're just like, oh, like can we make you something to eat? We've got like da-da-da-da, we've got a chef, we've got this and that. Just like nice. Yeah, it was just really, really cool. And like one of the times I hung out with them, I got super stupid drunk in this tiny like Miranda. I don't know if they still do it. I haven't hooked up and hang out with them in a long time. But they used to have, Miranda had her tour bus, and then they would pull behind the tour bus this little like mini silver Airstream trailer that was just a bar. It was like fully stocked. The Airstream was a fully stocked hangout bar for after, before show, whatever. So they would drive around the country like doing their shows, and then after shows, like that was kind of like the VIP hang, was you got to hang out in the Airstream trailer.
Oh, that's rad.
And I got like way beyond like I should not have.
What were you drinking?
I don't even know. I just don't even know because like the drinking started with, it was back when Aiden's not in the band anymore, but Aiden was the redhead with the mohawk bass player. It has like a 3-string bass. And so he was already kind of genre-defying for country in his own way.
Cool.
But yeah, he got us drink tickets like while we were watching the show, and then bam, it was like after the show, come hang out. It's like, oh no, it was just it was a sloppy night.
Oh no.
But yeah.
You're alive.
I'm thankfully alive to tell that story. Seriously, I should not have drank that much. That was just.
It happens to the best of us.
Yeah. Well, cool. Thank you so much for like being here and sharing all your stories.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
Players Pick Podcast, Picks and Perspective with Chris Johnson.
This episode of Players Pick Podcast is brought to you by our good friends at Jim Dunlop Guitar Products, Kiesel Custom Guitars, and Mackie Headphones and Mixers. Sound design by Drew of the Drew, and voiceovers by the amazing Minnie Joe. I have been your host, Chris Johnson. Until next time,